So in this video, we're going to look at tuning vocals. I'm going to walk you through everything that I do, so let's jump into it here. Okay, so we're going to tune this lead vocal. I'm going to pull a copy here, so Option, drag up, and then we can mute that guy. Open up our Melodyne, and let's transfer this in.
Out there on a ledge and dreamed about my life, what it could be, what it should be.
Alright, so everything's tracked into Melodyne here. So let's go ahead. When I tune, I like to have the vocal track pretty loud. And I like it to be, louder than it would be in an actual mix. One thing that I used to mess up all the time was soloing the vocal and trying to tune it. This just doesn't work very well because you can think certain notes need to be in certain spots, but honestly, the music really informs the pitch of the performance. And sometimes, it's okay for certain lines to be just slightly out. When you have the music in the background, it just makes it sound normal. So don't tune vocals in solo mode. Go ahead and just make it, much louder than it normally would be, but make sure you can hear the track in the background. And if you feel like you're getting distracted by like drums or whatever, you can go ahead and mute those. But I would have, the majority of the melodic instruments playing so you can really use that as a reference point. All right, here we go.
I flew back to the East Coast. I flew back to the East.
Flat there. And one trick that I picked up along the way is you can arrow through these notes, and it's really helpful to figure out which one is sharp or flat. So all you have to do is click into that blob, I guess they call these, and hit your right arrow on the keyboard.
Back to the
right, so that was easy to tell that was sharp.
Back to the East.
Flat. If you hit Option, you can actually drag it off the grid. Right? So let's see how that sounds.
I flew back to the East Coast. I flew back to the East Coast.
Okay, let's separate this.
I flew back to the East Coast. East to the East Coast. I flew back to the East Coast.
Right? It's sounding good there.
I flew back to the East Coast. Yeah.
Note separate.
I flew back to the East Coast. Yeah. Coast. Yeah. Coast. Yeah. Coast. Yeah. I flew back to the East Coast. Yeah.
Okay, it's a little flat.
I flew back to the East Coast. Yeah.
I want this to feel like it's stronger there. So I'm going to note separate it. And then I'm going to grab the pitch modulation tool and just tighten that up a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, that's sounding a lot better. Let's hear it from the top here.
I flew back to the East Coast. Yeah.
All right, that's sounding a lot better. I think I want to tighten this one up a little bit.
back. I flew back to the East Coast, yeah.
Oh, and side note, if you want to like flat everything out so it kind of gives it the T-Pain effect, you can double click when you have your modulation tool and it flattens it. Like that.
I flew back to the East Coast, yeah.
Like you could flatten out all of these and it would just get crazy.
I flew back to the East Coast, yeah.
So I don't think you'd want to actually do that, but that's something you can do. All right, let's move on to the next section here.
I drove up to the Blue Ridge.
So we got some pitch issues here. Let's see what we got going on.
I drove up. I drove up to the Blue Ridge.
I'm telling you, using the arrow is just, I love it.
I drove up to the Blue
Right, so that was
the Blue
sharp.
Ridge.
Let's hear
I
that.
drove up to the Blue Ridge Peaks. I drove up to the Blue Ridge Peaks.
All right, we're gonna note separate this because this, I believe, is the bulk of that note, and that's the part that's really gonna. It's really gonna be the part that you identify as it being in pitch or being out of pitch. So let's check that out.
I drove up to the Blue Ridge Peaks. I drove up to the Blue Ridge Peaks.
Yeah, so it needs to be out
I
there.
drove up to the Blue Ridge Peaks. I drove up to the Blue Ridge Peaks.
All right, and that's a little flat there.
I drove up to the Blue Ridge Peaks. I sat there on a ledge.
Okay, how's that sounding?
I drove up to the Blue Ridge Peaks. I
Okay,
sat there on a ledge and dreamed about my life, what it could. I sat there on a ledge. Sat I sat there on a I sat there on a I sat there I sat there on a ledge and dreamed about my I sat there on a ledge I sat there on a ledge and dreamed there on a ledge
that is sharp.
dreamed
Separate that.
I sat there on a ledge and dreamed about my life. And dreamed. I sat there on a ledge and dreamed about my life. I sat there on a ledge and dreamed about my life.
Separate that bigger note there.
I sat there on a ledge and dreamed about my life. What
Got some issues there.
about my life?
Okay, so that right there is a note. I can basically see that. Let's fix that.
About my life. What about my life? About my life. What it
It sounded better.
I sat there on a ledge and dreamed about my life, what it could be, what it could be,
Flat.
could be, what it could, what it could, life, what it could be, life, what it it could be.
Sharp. And we're gonna straighten that out. So with the pitch drift tool, you can use it to horizontally like level the note out. So if the left hand side of the note is like falling off, or the backhand is falling off, it's almost like a steering wheel, and you can equalize it and bring it to like a 0 default position, kind of like I have right here. Like, so it was more like that. And I'm just trying to straighten that note out a little bit.
What it could be.
I'm actually gonna separate that a little bit there.
What it could be. What it could be. What it should be. What it
Sharp.
What it should be. What it could be. What it should be.
Alright, so that's a little shaky there.
What it should be. What it should be. What it should be. What it should be. Be what it should be.
Okay. And this one's kind of drifting. Let's tighten that up a little bit.
What it should be.
All right. That is the verse section. Let's listen through and see if there's anything that's still jumping out at us that needs some fixing.
I flew back to the East Coast, yeah. I drove up to the Blue Ridge Peaks. I sat there on a ledge and dreamed about my life, what it could be, what it should be.
Alrighty. That's sounding really natural to me, and it's sounding like it's in tune now. So what I like to do, I don't always do this, but sometimes I will do Melodyne, and I will follow it up by Auto-Tune. Okay, it's in G major. So what Auto-Tune does for me, it really just gives me an extra level of varnish, if you will. You know, it makes a vocal that's, you know, in tune, but it gives it a bit more polish, a bit more shine. So let's start with it all the way down, and we'll just slowly start scaling it up and see what we get.
I flew back to the East Coast, yeah. I drove up to the Blue Ridge Peaks. I sat there on a ledge and dreamed about my life, what it could be, what it should be. I flew back to the East Coast, yeah. I drove up to the Blue Ridge Peaks. I sat there on a ledge and dreamed about my life, what it could be, what it should be. I flew back to the East Coast, yeah. I drove up to the Blue Ridge Peaks. I sat there on a ledge and dreamed about my life, what it could be, what it should be. I flew back to the East Coast, yeah. I drove up to the Blue Ridge Peaks. I sat there on a ledge.
All right, so this is my process. You know, I start with Melodyne, make sure everything's good pitch-wise, get it so it's sounding natural. And sometimes, depending on the genre, I might stop right there and then go into, you know, if I'm going to mix it, go ahead and start mixing. If it's a pop track, I will typically 9 times out of 10 take it this next step here and add, you know, some auto-tune. Just in, you know, automatic mode, make sure you set your key right. Make sure you have that major or minor. If you have chromatic, it's going to be jumping all over the place. So make sure you set these, very important. And then your input type, alto for this performance here. And then just slowly start dialing it up until you feel like you're getting the gloss and the polish on that track that you're looking for. I hope you found this video helpful. And yeah, let's jump into mixing this thing.